Episode 20, Living Our Messy Lives. Welcome to Reviving Your Soul, where Christians are finding the courage to embrace their faith in all aspects of their lives so they can stop being bored or overwhelmed and begin to live the life in fulfillment and in peace that God created them for. I'm your host, Vanna Johnson. Let's get started. Life gets messy. We can plan and organize, but things always seem to get in the way. In fact, I've always said, if you want to make God laugh, just make plans. Of course, we make plans anyway. We need to, or otherwise we drift. The only thing worse than making plans that have to be changed is not making any plans at all, and not having a goal or a purpose in life. When plans change, we still get to make progress, and we learn and we grow. I equate it to being on a raft in a river. Those of us that grew up on the Missouri River really get this. If we don't have any goals or work towards our target for wherever we want to go, we will just stay where we are or truly drift downstream, which in itself really is a plan. As long as we consciously make the decision that we don't care where we end up, that actually can be a beautiful plan. But most of us do care, and most of us want to get where we want to go. If we are being honest here, and I always try to be, I've done a little of both of the drifting and the planning in the last few years. I've made plans, readjusted, and planned again. And other times I just wander through days on end without a purpose. I almost always inevitably feel better when I have a goal for the day and set out to accomplish that goal. In fact, I've come to believe that we all need to have some sort of a plan, a goal. Truly, without a purpose, it begins to feel as though our life has no meaning, and we get bogged down. One of the best things about what I do is helping people reach inside of themselves and find what their true desires are, and then help them make the changes in their lives so they can have all that they desire. The beautiful thing about the process is that it doesn't have to be all or none. We can be working toward reaching our true desires, but working towards those desires in really tiny increments. For some reason, we can often have all the joy that comes with actually having reached our desires by just actively working towards them. It seems almost counterintuitive, but just by knowing that what we want and believing we can have it, even if we are only making baby steps towards having it, it is so much more gratifying than feeling like we are just wasting our time. The problem with all of this is that sometimes the plans we make may not be consistent with what God's plans are for us. I don't know about you, but even when I ask God to help me live in His will, I have this tendency to push the envelope and try to make it happen my way or in my time frame. Sometimes when that happens, He has no option but to pull the rug out from underneath me. That's what happened to me last week. If you listen to episode 19, you know that I spent 3 days in the hospital at my little unscheduled medical retreat, as I've lovingly been calling my stay at the hospital. You see, I've been making plans and moving forward, and then all of a sudden I had this pain that just kept getting worse and worse until there was no way to ignore the signals that I needed to get medical attention. What I hadn't counted on was learning that I would very likely need surgery to correct the problem. Okay, let's do it. I've got work to do. Not so fast, says Doc. There are procedures and timelines and schedules we need to work around. Well, we'll let you know. What? Don't they know I have a life? I have a business I need to run. Of course they do, but let's face it, it isn't an emergency, thank God for that, nor is it life-threatening. An even bigger thank you for that, God. So despite all the planning I had done to create the perfect pre-Christmas program, it wasn't going to work the way I had envisioned it, or at the very least in the time frame I had envisioned. At first, it was really discouraging. I was filled with doubt. What does this mean? Do I need to change my focus? Am I supposed to change my program? There must be something wrong. And then, as I prayed and meditated on the issue, it became clear to me that it wasn't just my time. I have other things I need to do, not the least of which is to give my body time to repair and heal. I loved how my coach said it. She said, sometimes we need to just slow down before we speed up. We just need to pause and take a breath. Trust in divine timing. So once again, I'm receiving a lesson on how to let go and surrender to God. You see, so many things are beyond our understanding. We are not made to comprehend all of the ways that make the world go around, or even what makes our bodies function properly. We do the best we can with the information we have at hand. We research, we study, we question, we search, and then when we feel we've gathered enough information, we make a decision. Through it all, we pray and we seek God's guidance. Sometimes it can be scary, but knowing God is always with us makes it so much less so. Sometimes it's best not to know everything. Truly, if we are to look at most situations in life, we'd get very frustrated if we believed that we had the whole picture, because it really just doesn't make sense. We have to believe there is more going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. Sometimes we have to take comfort in knowing that there is a whole lot going on, and we just have to believe that God is up to something bigger. And in turn, we just need to trust Him fully and completely. It reminds me of a story I read years ago. When I did a search for the story, I found a version credited to a pastor, Jack Hyles, called God's Embroidery. I hope you don't mind if I share a slightly modified version of it here, because I think it really pulls all of this into perspective for us. He says, "When I was a child, my mother used to embroider a great deal. I would sit at her knee and look up from the floor and ask her what she was doing. She informed me that she was embroidering. I told her that it looked like a mess from where I was, as from the underside I watched her work with the boundaries of that little round hoop that she held in her hand, and I complained to her that it looked messy from where I sat. She would smile at me, look down, and gently say, 'My child, you go about your playing for a while, and when I am finished with my embroidering, I will put you up on my knee and let you see it from my side.' I would wonder why she was using some dark threads along with the bright ones, and why they seemed so jumbled from my view. Time passed, and then I heard my mother's voice say, 'Child, come and sit on my knee.' This I did only to be surprised and thrilled to see either a beautiful flower or a stunning sunset. I could not believe it, because from underneath it looked so messy. Then Mother would say to me, 'My child, from underneath it did look messy and jumbled, but you did not realize that there was a pre-drawn plan on the top. It was a design. I was only following the design that was already there. Now look at it from my side and you will see what I was doing.' Many times through the years, I have looked up to my Heavenly Father and said, 'Father, what are you doing?' He has answered, 'I am embroidering your life.' I say, 'But it looks like a mess to me. It's so jumbled. The thread seems so dark. Why can't they all be bright?' And my Father seems to tell me, 'My child, you go about your business of doing my business, and one day I will bring you up to heaven and put you on my knee, and you will see the plan from my side.'" I read that story years ago when I was going through some really scary events in my life, and it brought a lot of comfort to me then. And it still rings true for me all these years later. You see, we aren't meant to see and know everything. We just take the next step and have faith that it will work out. The problem is, sometimes we get bogged down because we are unsure of the next step, so we stay where we are. As I mentioned earlier, that in itself is a decision. If you feel you are being called to something more in life, you also need to take that next step in courageous faith and trust that it will be fine. The beauty of it is that with God's grace, if that step is a wrong direction, He will correct us and help us back on track. And we get to learn something from it. We can't really get it wrong, because we can always learn something new. So whether you're dreaming of making a big change in your life, like a new job, or a small change like taking up a new hobby, just do it. If you, like me, have some medical stuff to deal with, whether it's deciding on surgery or finally taking off some of those extra pounds, gather the information you need, ask the questions about the stuff you are unsure of, and give yourself permission to start. Life is too short to live with regrets, so boldly follow your heart. You really can't go wrong. It will likely get messy along the way, but that's okay, because our Creator has a plan. It may not look like your plan, but it's a good one. So take that step and see what unfolds. You will be glad you did. If you would like to see how I can help you with taking that first step, or even discovering what it is your soul is longing for, let's talk. I find so much joy in helping people become their best version of themselves, to be the person God created them for, so that they too can live in peace and know that it's all okay and that there is not one thing to worry about. We are exactly where we are for a reason, and it will all be not just okay, but better than okay. So thank you for listening today. I know you're busy, and I'm always so grateful for your time. If you know someone who might be encouraged by this message today, please share it with them. If you are compelled to do so, please leave a comment on iTunes. I would so greatly appreciate it. So I ask you to go, have an amazing day, live in courageous faith, and it will revive your soul.